everyone. I'm Rayanne Thorne-Kruger. Welcome to In the Green Room. My guest today is the incomparable Bob Jensen. Hey, Bob, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
Always fun to talk with you. And we have a specific topic today, and I know is near and dear to your heart and to many that are involved with Fullerton College Theater. And we're going to be talking about Bronwyn Dodson. But before we do that, could you please give us a little introduction of yourself?
Well, I'm retired. I've been retired since 2015. Before that, I spent 35 years at Fullerton College, 25 years as a theater professor, 10 years as the Dean of Fine Arts. In my last 5 years, I was in charge of the Fullerton College Centennial with a number of teammates. And that was a wonderful time. It reminded me how special a college education can be.
Well, I have very fond memories of having you as an instructor at Fullerton College, and I feel very lucky, fortunate, and blessed to have maintained our friendship over the years and to have an opportunity now to work with you with the Fullerton College Theater Alumni and Friends project that we're working on now. And one of those parts of the project is to continue to keep the scholarships funded that benefit the Fullerton College Theater students. So let's talk about Bronwyn Dodson. Bronwyn Dodson was a student. If you could tell us a little bit about her, that would be great.
So she, she's dear to so many of our hearts that knew her, and then so many people who learned about her afterwards. It really goes to the basic value of storytelling. Why do we tell stories? And we think Bronwyn's story is significant first as emblematic of so many great theater majors that came through the program while we were fortunate enough to be the professors there. We always thought our job was to create opportunity for students and then teach them enough so they didn't burn the theater building down. Give them enough freedom, but rein them in when was necessary. And so she was emblematic of a time when a lot of students were throwing themselves into theater production, both on campus and in other venues locally, as well as in Los Angeles and going to New York. A very exciting time. She was emblematic of a philosophy we had, which was that everyone at the Fullerton College was to learn about every side of production, show respect to every member of the ensemble, because you knew how hard they worked before you went on to really specialize in the craft as you chose to, or if you went on into another career to at least understand the basic principles of teamwork. So she was emblematic of that, and emblematic of a philosophy of full engagement. But there's also a unique factor to her as well. So we can look at her resume and see all the things that she did by embracing a philosophy of touching every side of production and going beyond in lots of ways in terms of engagement. But I think the unique factor about her is the personhood, who she was as a person. And I remember at the Sean Quirk, English professor at the time, said to me he really thought he had a special friendship with Bronwyn, because when he would cross the theater patio on his way up to the theater, the English offices, he said, if he saw Bronwyn, she jumped back into whatever conversation they were having before, that she remembered what they were talking about. And he said, I really thought that I was a very, very special friend of hers because of that treatment I received. And then I went to the memorial service on campus after she died and realized that there were at least 500 other people who felt the same way.
That's a special person.
And so
right?
a lot of people felt like she made time for them. She looked out for them. She was available to them. You could call her. She babysat all the faculty, and our children helped us out. But she had a rule that she wouldn't talk about us or our private lives to any of the students. So she kind of walked the line between being a great confidant and friend of the students and a friend to the faculty, knowing that there still needed to be divisions between us in terms of faculty and student. But she became very much involved in our lives. And so that personhood, that was the unique factor about her. the production, we could line up hundreds and hundreds of alumni who were great directors and stage managers and lighting designers and set designers and actors and actresses. But really, what was unique about her was how much she cared about the people around her. Lots of stories that evidence that. I'll just give you one example. She was in a production of Hair, and found out that one of the students had missed the call time, and she was very concerned about the student and reached out, and then found the student out in the driveway getting out of a taxi cab. She had been evicted from wherever she was living.
Oh, wow.
She had a taxi. The taxi brought her there, but she had no money to pay the taxi cab driver. Bronwyn went in, took a collection from the cast, went out, paid the taxi cab driver, and had raised enough money so there was and made arrangements for where she was going to stay that night and for the next couple nights. It was just one little blip on the radar of how tuned in she was to other people at different times. And um, I have not cornered the market on the friendship stories. There are lots of alums who would tell you their own stories that were really so special. And even as we grappled with her death, those stories just kept coming back again and again and again, of people talking about what she meant to them and what lessons we learned from Bronwyn. And at her memorial service, just to wrap this section of our interview up, at her memorial service, it was Paul Haggerty, one of the current students and friend of hers, idea to come up with a small business card size pledge card. And it said on the pledge card, "In memory of Bronwyn Dotson, whose gift to me was," blank space to fill in,
Wow.
"whose memory, whose gift to me was, I pledge to." So it was kind of a taking our grief and trying to put it into positive action, inspired by Bronwyn. I filled out 8 cards that night
Wow.
of things that I needed to change. And one of them happened that night. I actually sought out someone that I was not getting along with and spent time with him after her memorial service, just expressing my desire to fix things between us. And it went on into more significant things in my life that I think a number of us recognized that she was there too long. When she would come back, because we thought she was leaving a couple times, when she'd come back, we'd give her leadership opportunities because we could depend on her and we didn't have to worry about that anymore. And we prolonged her stay there. And so that led to a commitment on the faculty's part, led by Mella Hoyt Hayden, that we needed to do more advisement and get more involved in helping our students move on to whatever the next stage in their development was going to be, whether that was to go to New York or Los Angeles or to go to school and continue their training or a conservatory. And Mella really dove into that with great passion and great compassion, and then taught the rest of us more about what to do. But Mella made a huge difference because we felt compelled by Bronwyn, the length of Bronwyn's tenure, to try to make sure that we moved people through our program quicker, and then it wasn't just a safe place to stay. And I'm not accusing Bronwyn of that, but she came back twice after we thought she was moving on. I even met with her mom about that because we were concerned. And at the time that she died, she was planning to apply to North Carolina School of the Arts and study stage management. So she had a plan, and that's what adds to who was Bronwyn. The tragedy of Bronwyn is that she died on her way to school one day in an accident, and
A
that
car accident.
that a car accident, and that tragedy compelled a lot of us to explore what it meant to grieve personally and collectively. And what do we do with that tragedy? As so many people often ask when a young person dies, what do we do to keep the memory alive? What do we do to show how inspired we were? I mean, those I think are important to us.
That's a beautiful, thank you for sharing that. I've heard her name, obviously, many, many times over the years and did not know the story. I was a student after Bronwyn at Fullerton College and knew of the naming of the Black Box Theater and also of the scholarship. So let's talk about the scholarship. Tell us what it entails, how much it's for, and then let's talk about who's eligible for the scholarship.
Okay. First, and then maybe eventually we can talk about the theater naming if time permits. But
Sure,
I
sure.
think most important to all of us was in that question of how do we translate tragedy into something positive. We can't eliminate the tragedy, but can we do something that's future directed towards helping students? And that was the desire of her family, her dad Charles, mom Vicky, sister Alyssa, and now Alyssa's husband Stephen Nelson. Was, let's really try to help the students, and we'll do that in Bronwyn's name. And so we wanted that to be a very special scholarship. We wanted it to recognize someone with exceptional promise or a polytalent, someone with um, a number of different gifts in the theater world, um, and it needed to be somebody ready to move on to the next place. And so that scholarship has that criteria: 2.5 GPA, ready to move on, showing tremendous promise, and or a really full quiver of giftedness, that they were going to use. The scholarship award today, since through the thanks of the alumni and friends, we've been able to raise money to restore that scholarship to a much more positive balance. Right now, the award is $2,500 a year to a single student. For a number of years, it was given to two, and in a few cases, three students in the past. And I've got to tell you that the list, I looked over them before this interview, an incredible confederacy of excellence that is
Yeah.
represented by those people and what they've gone on to do in their lives, and not just in entertainment, but in whatever they've chosen to do, and really remarkable people. And battling all kinds of things in life, but we hope with the encouragement of being recognized by the department. How do students apply for it? It's one of 5 scholarships awarded by the theater arts faculty, and so internal to the department is their advertising the application process, and all those applications are reviewed by the faculty each spring before the theater arts banquet, and they decide who the award will be granted to. And in Bronwyn's case, we asked the award winners to write to Bronwyn's family, because they very much want to track with the alumni and see what life looks like after Fullerton College. So it has those two components to it. That's the scholarship, thanks to our alumni and friends, where it is presently.
And what year was her scholarship established?
She passed away in 1991, and the first award we made was in the spring of 1992, and it was to Cress Williams, who's a pretty well-known television and film actor and an awesome human being. So,
It's wonderful. What a legacy she has. I don't want to say left because it lives on. The legacy that she has at Fullerton College is unique and special. So I'm so appreciative of the stories that you've shared here. I know that there are many others. And maybe in the comment section, wherever this interview airs, folks can share their individual stories and memories of Bronwyn and what she gave to them. She sounds like she was an incredible person, and what a wonderful family and group of friends that still remember her. I've learned that grief is, as hard as it is, just shows how much someone is loved, right? And Bronwyn clearly was loved. Let's talk about, if we can, just a minute about the Black Box Theater.
okay. Um, Again, the question was, how do we translate this tragedy into something positive? And we thought the idea of naming a theater after a student was not some sort of form of idolatry. It was just recognizing what the department could be at its best. And at its best, the department could be a student-centered program. It was interesting. Some people opposed the idea outside our immediate theater community. And some of the reasons, they thought carefully. They came to me. They, gave me advice to change the plan that emerged out of a staff meeting, and then student support, and then alumni support. And they said things like, if we do this, we're going to run out of rooms if we start naming things after people. And it was such a strange um, culture at Fullerton College to say, what do you mean we don't name things after people? Why would we not? Why would we not want people to
Right.
ask the question, who was Bronwyn Dodson? Um, Others said, well, it was a knee-jerk reaction to a horrible tragedy, an accident, gruesome accident. And we said, no, it may seem like we're moving pretty fast, but we've really talked this through, and we're not trying to say she was the most remarkable person in the world, but we thought her story to be remarkable enough that it could be an inspiring story.
Right.
The same way the scholarship, and that
Right.
all the time that so many people have loved working in that, first as the studio theater, now the Bronwyn Dodson Theater. We love that because we said we don't want it to just be an emblem of the department at its very best. We also want it to be a symbol of the department at its most challenging times. And we felt that Bronwyn really personified how you turn um, a challenge into an opportunity, how she would show up and volunteer by not asking, what do I have to do, but what needs to be done. And as she developed as a stage manager, her clipboard, her red cowboy boots, it was all part of her personal signature. But most important was an attitude about, I'm here, I want to help, what can I do? And we thought that that's a beautiful side of what theater can be when we don't make it about ourselves, but we actually make it more collectively about what's happening and how can I contribute to what's happening here, or how can I turn around something that looks like it's not going well, and so she and Don Carlson came to me about the theater festival when she was a student and said, Bob, you and the rest of the staff, you work so hard in the theater festival, but Don and I and a couple of students were talking, I think we have some ideas to improve this. So, and I said, well, run with it. Let's see where this goes. Let's run with it and come back. And they created a model that has continued to the present day. And Bronwyn's book became the Bible for theater festival
Yeah.
leaders. And she recommended that, and Don, equal partner in this, recommended that each leader would create their own notebook each year, and it would be kind of a love letter to their successor. And at the very best, that's what happened, that people really thought about, I'm passing on this institutional, not just history, but knowledge of how to do it to the next person. Let them breathe their own ideas into it. But here's your failsafe. Here's your protection. Here's those of
I
us that have done it
remember the
before.
book well. My daughter was a student leader for the
Yeah.
theater festival one year, and, she guarded that with her life, right?
So
So,
that's part of the legacies of people like Bronwyn, and we wanted to keep telling that story. That you come in with an imagination, you come in with a willingness to help. You want to be part of the team. Um,
it's
no
great.
one's more special than anyone else. We just have a common purpose, and let's work towards that. And the personhood of her that made us want to talk about her too was, I mean, the night before she died, she was babysitting my kids. Sandy was in grad school. I was going down to a rehearsal of Indians. The last thing I saw of her, um, as I'm leaving to get back to work, having had dinner, was Bronwyn and my kids running down the street because she was going to play tennis with them just after dinner before they moved into homework. And she had her red cowboy boots on and she was running down the street in the least appropriate shoes to play tennis in, but she didn't care. And, you know, uh, so a joy in life. Someone called it once gammon-like glee. But I think it was just the joy she had in embracing life, embracing the arts. We thought that was part of the story. That when we said Bronwyn Dodson Theater, it also was about a really cultivated aesthetic that came from parents who loved the arts and loved the sciences and loved studying at Oxford and Canada and working with rocket engineers in University of Alabama, Huntsville. Dance, music, art was always a part of their lives. And Bronwyn, when they moved to California, went to Canyon High School, was very involved there, and then fully immersed herself in our program. And she also created what we call the student leadership team, and the sense of greeters. And that's morphed through the years and been further developed. But she sort of appointed herself a welcoming person for new students and offered advice if they were seeking any advice about how to navigate our program successfully. And a lot of other students understood that and then assumed that same kind of role. So in naming the theater, And I realize people can walk underneath the brass letters and say, "Who's that? I don't know."
Right.
But
Which
if
is
they
one of the reasons we wanted to do this,
yeah,
right?
we just
So,
wanna be able to say, "A very good person who loved theater just like you do, and, enjoy digging in and finding out more about her story if you'd like to."
how can individuals that are seeking this scholarship apply?
So they will find out from the faculty in the spring what the application process and deadline is, what the requirements are, in that application, and the kids take it pretty seriously. I mean, I had, Addison Glines when he was in chemotherapy, was very upset and placed a phone call to me and said, "I'm gonna miss the deadline for the application,"
Oh,
'cause he was at CHOC at that point. Um, and I said, "Addie, I know this is important to you. You've talked to me about this scholarship before. I'll see you in about 30 minutes." I went down to CHOC. We did the application together in his hospital room. So for the kids, it's pretty important. I'm
yes.
calling them kids, the young adults involved, and they learn how to go about this. The faculty kind of guide them through that process.
Great. So what does the future look like, the forward for the, Bronwyn Dotson Scholarship? What's the hope?
I think the dream that's been articulated by Alyssa and Stephen Nelson, Bronwyn's sister and brother-in-law, and supported by Vicki Dotson, her mom, who's still alive, and they all live on the East Coast, in the New York area, is if we can raise another $25,000 to that scholarship, that would bring the principal balance to $100,000. And what that would mean is every year there would be $3,500 available for awards. And what Stephen and Alyssa are very passionate about is trying to provide emergency relief as well as the scholarship for the student that's moving on, and wants to be an encouragement to returning students as well. So their vision for the scholarship, if we can raise that additional $25,000, is to continue the $2,500 scholarship. Um, and that award makes it, out of the 87 scholarships on campus, I think it's the, 8th largest scholarship now on campus. Uh, we would still have the department would have an additional $500 for emergency fund relief with limited strings attached to be able to help a student immediately that was in any trouble, like the young lady in the taxi cab that Bronwyn helped, pay the
Yes.
taxi cab and find the motel to stay in that night and pay for it for a couple nights. And also another $500 award for a returning student just to help with expenses, books, other academic expenses, or personal needs that they may have just to be able to go to school. Because we have through the years seen students have to interrupt their schooling because the demands of family and finance have changed, and they need to address those changes. So we like to grow that for that purpose. And then as the principal grows through the years, my hope is that some of the alumni would consider making it a part of their estate plans, as I have done. Um, and I think that's just a legacy choice that some of us may want to make. And I hope some of the alums would think about that. And you and I have both met with the theater faculty. It's important
Yeah,
to us that it's not just the name of the scholarship, but at least a short story of
right,
explanation so that the story gets told again and again and again in the hopes not of idolatry, but of encouragement.
right. Inspiration. She's a true inspiration, and I'm so appreciative of you sharing just a few of your stories of, Bronwyn and the impact that she had on you, on the department, on the college, on programs. So, such a pleasure to chat with you, Bob. Thank you for joining me for the first episode of In the Green Room, brought to you by Fullerton College Theater alumni and friends. And I hope to be speaking with others. We'll be talking about Addison Glines in the future and other individuals that impact. This program specifically is for alumni and friends of Fullerton College Theater. And so there's lots of stories to tell, and I can't wait to be a part of that. Thanks again, Bob.
Thank you, Rayanne. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.